Thank you for tuning in to the SciClones podcast. I am your current cubed earther, Annika.
I'm also here. I'm Dalton. I got really confused. So, like, flat Earth, but it's cube
Yeah, the
Earth.
Earth is a cube. It's like Minecraft.
Fair.
It makes more sense because then there can still be the down under. It's a cube.
Alright, okay.
So, anyways, today we are going to be talking about the 1999 science fiction novel Starfish by Canadian author Peter Watts. So we can do a little background on Mr. Watts. So he was born in 1958. He's Canadian. And he actually worked as a marine mammal biologist for a long time. He got his PhD from the University of British Columbia, from the Department of Zoology. And so he did a lot of marine biology stuff, and then he switched over to writing. And this was his first full-length novel. And fun fact I found about him is that he actually is a felon in the U.S. and cannot enter the U.S. from Canada.
Okay, we're gonna have to go on. Is it bad? Did he
No.
do something really bad?
No.
What did he do?
He got detained at the border for apparently what's the word? Resisting, like, a random search.
Oh, so
He said he got pepper sprayed and put in jail for a night.
that's hilarious. Also, the other fun fact, he seems like a swell guy.
He does. He emailed me back.
Yes, did you want to tell that situation, or
Yeah,
maybe
or-
some backstory about why we chose this book?
Okay, yeah, well, this is my favorite book that I've read in my short life.
Of all time.
Of all time. And, you know, I'm a freak, I'm a weirdo, whatever, but it's a good book. And so I was trying to find, it's actually the first of a trilogy, and I have the first and the second book physical copies. He has them for free on his website, by the way, rifters.com, if you want to read them. But I could not, for the life of me, find the third book for anything less than like $200. And so I emailed him and I was like, do you know where I could find this for like a reasonable price, please? And he actually emailed back. And he said, no, I probably could not because it actually did really, really poorly, the third book. And so there were very few of them printed. And so now they're like a collector's item.
Yeah, no, I mean, apparently this book does... We were just looking to see if there's a Wikipedia page for this book, and there's not. But apparently there is for... So is this not his most popular?
No. So his most popular book is a novel called Blind Sight, which is another science fiction one. And that one probably has a Wikipedia, and that one's more...
Is that what he's known for,
Yeah.
is Blind Sight?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and it has a sequel called Echopraxia. Oh, that's also pretty well known, so...
There you go. I don't know it because I don't read books, unless it's The Witcher or Warhammer.
Or for this podcast.
Or for this podcast.
Which I'm making you
I'm reading.
So this book is sort of about, it's like future, but not space future. They're in the deep sea, so it's basically a bunch of people who have these like technological enhancements, like bio implants and stuff, so they can survive and work outside in the deep sea, and they work on these geothermal power plants way out there that's like getting power from the rifts in the ocean to power the US or just North America.
It's not really explained. It does sound like it's some sort of... Maybe I just missed it because I only read it once. You've read it a few times. That it's kind of a dystopian future. I mean, it's our Earth, but the locations are called different. Like, there's a part at the very beginning of the book that they never touch on again, is that, like, they're on this tour of the geothermal vents in, like, a submarine ship thing, and one of the guys has, like, chloroplasts in his cells, so that way he can photosynthesize, and then we don't really talk about that again, I guess because they're in the deep ocean, and they don't have to worry about sunlight, but... So it sounds like there's technology, but it's also still kind of a shitty place to be.
Yeah. Like, there's, like, a lot of slums, and there's just sort of a lot of, like, computer viruses and real viruses kind of running around. So it's a little sort of biopunk, I guess.
Yeah, and there's, like, AI, but the AI are, like, they grow brain cells and put them on a plate, and then now they're AI, but they're brains.
Which is actually cool, because the sequel to this goes way more into, like, the AI and the computer type stuff. And, I mean, this book was written in 1999, so this is way before, like, any sort of AI that we know it.
Yeah, and it's kind of to jump the gun, but I think it's interesting. There's this part of the book where they kind of talk to the... Is it called a brain gel? Is that what they call it? The AI thing?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
They're just like a gel.
Yeah, he has a conversation. One of the characters has a conversation with it, and it like responds how like Chat GPT responds to you if you ask it a question. It's just very vague, a lot of like non-answers. Mm-hmm. Like if you ask it like tough questions, and it's like it's very interesting because it was 1999. Like I don't know, I don't read books, so I don't know what other literature or stuff that went into AI like that as much, but this is like a new thing for us. Because I mean, talk about like when I started grad school like 2 years ago. No one used ChatGPT, and now it's like everyone uses it to like double check code or proofread stuff. So it's crazy.
Or write stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's write stuff in general.
Smart gels, I think they call them.
Smart gels. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really cool. So, anyways, we can just get into the plot. So it starts off doing this like deep sea tour with a guy named Joel who pilots this submarine, and they like take rich people down and show them the deep ocean and so forth. And there's one spot called Channer Vent where the fish and the wildlife get really, really big, and no one really knows why. But it's also the spot where this grid authority, which is like the power company, has built one of these geothermal stations. And so Joel does these tours, but he also takes the workers down there who actually work down in the station.
Yeah, and I can never pronounce. You told me that I pronounced the base wrong because it was like. I call it BB, but it's like... I
think it's just Beeb.
Beeb? Because you said it was
he was a marine biologist, like, way back in the day.
Gotcha. But, yeah, it kind of starts... Because that's kind of like the prologue, Joel and the thing, and it starts with, like, our main character. I don't know how to say her name. This is the problem with books. I don't know how to pronounce words, and if I just read them, I pronounce them. I wanted to call her Leanne, but it's
Lenny.
Lenny Clark, and her... co-worker at the time, because they're in this pretty much they're working to make sure those geothermal vents are producing energy, and at that time it's just her and another woman named
Ballard. Lenny and Ballard are just down there as sort of the starter crew before the rest of the people come down to work, and Ballard seems pretty normal, and we come to find Lenny's she's kind of messed up.
Yeah, Ballard tries to have conversations with her and smiles and acts normal with her, and we just want to call her Clark.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what they kind of refer to people by last name. There's a lot of, like, internal monologues where she's like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, don't look at me, and it's a lot of, I don't know, I get it confused in my head because she kind of talks about a lot of situations she's in her, like, internal monologues. I don't remember when she talks about specific, like, bad things that happen to her, but we learned from like the get-go that she has had a lot of trauma in her life, and that it's kind of made her, I guess, distrust people and not want to interact with them. So being stuck down in this it sounds like it's a little tiny like shelter at the bottom of the ocean, and yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah,
I guess we should also talk about the big thing is that when they get put down there, they get a lung removed and implanted with some sort of technology that allows them to just take their oxygen from the water.
The ocean water.
So kind of like a gill.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have these eye caps, they call them, which I guess are like, I guess they're kind of like contacts they put over their eyes so that they can see in like lower light and things. So she has them on constantly, and that's a big thing between her and, what do you call her?
Ballard.
Ballard. Because Ballard hates it, because she's like, I can't see your eyes, you're not even human. And then also they have this like dive skin that's like a black...
It's like a black...
bodysuit type thing.
Yeah, and it sort of seals, like when they go underwater, it like seals around their eye caps, so their eyes are sort of pinned open, so they can like see in the darkness.
Yeah, I guess it just is like a dive suit pretty much. But she refers to her as her skin and stuff, so it's like very much like the equipment that they get to go down there. Like Ballard thinks of it as like, this is the equipment we have to use, but like Clark thinks that this is like her safety, like so she doesn't have to look at people, or like people look in her eyes and they don't get to see her.
Yeah. So things like they start off kind of friendly, but then things kind of start to break down. Ballard starts to lose it a little bit, and the final straw, she gets attacked by like one of these giant fish, and the fish like comes at her and bites her, and she sort of like, is able to kind of tear it apart with her hands. Like, the fish are really big, but they're really flimsy.
Yeah, it's I think they explain this, like, they don't get a certain, like, protein or something,
like
nutrient. So, like, they grow really big, but their bites are very soft, I guess. So they're not pose as much of a danger, but I mean, you're still getting bit.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want your, like, suit to tear.
Yeah.
And Clark kind of just watches it happens. I don't know if it's just, like one of those things where, like, something bad happens in front of you and it's, like, slow-mo and you can't do anything. I don't remember how in-depth they go with that part.
I think she just sort of freezes up in the moment, because that's like when there's some sort of traumatic situation, her thing is just to, like, kind of go outside of herself, you know, and just, like, dissociate, I guess.
Same.
Yeah.
But
that's not for this podcast.
Yeah, it's a different podcast.
Yeah. So shortly after that, Ballard is picked up and leaves, and Clark is like, that's fine.
Because Ballard, like, flips her lid on Clark and, like, what, like, you dumb bitch, what are you doing?
I could have died.
And then they have to, like, stay down there for, like, another few weeks together. So it's, like, a little awkward, because then she, like, tries to go back to being nice to Clark a little bit. And then, yeah, Ballard ends up leaving. And the new crew is sit down.
Mm-hmm. Then her replacement comes down, and it's a guy named Lubin. And we've heard about Lubin because Ballard and Clark got word that supposedly he had killed his other partner at a different...
I don't know if it said that. They were just like an altercation. Something happened.
Okay, something happened.
Well, I believe it was his wife.
Yeah.
So he was on another geothermal outpost. What do they call them? Stations. Named after some other water man. And, it was something went wrong. They, like, either his wife went crazy and she had to leave, or he did something. They were not really sure what happened, but he ends up, with Clark, at first, but just them two, I think, for a little bit. And I think they get along pretty well because they are kind of they're pretty similar, where they don't really want to talk to other people. They're kind of just chill doing stuff on their own.
Yeah. So they hang out for a little bit, and it goes fine. And then the rest of the actual crew comes in. And we have Brander, Nakata, Karako, and Fisher. And we get a little bit of backstory on Fisher. And he's a child molester.
Yeah, it's like they set up a sting operation where the cop takes this, like, medication to make him look younger. Or I don't know if it actually de-ages him, but he's still, he have his memory still, and he poses as a boy, and Fisher tries to abduct him, but then he gets found out, and then gets sent to the agency who's controlling these outposts, and he kind of gets trained to be one of these people, and we're not really sure why. The doctor, Scanlan, I kept calling him Scallions. Scanlan, like, talks about how he's special, and that's why he's getting sit down there. But all we know about Fisher, he's a pedophile molesterman, specializes with boys, and that he has some sort of split personality, who's like a woman named Shadow.
Who, like, talks to him.
That talks to him. So he gets sent down there. I can't remember the order. I know Lupin goes, and then is it Fisher and then the rest of the three?
Well, it's Lupin and then all of the rest come down at once. So
and Joel ends up taking him down.
Yeah,
that's
Joel
the whole
takes
scene.
him down. But another thing with Fisher, I want to say, is that, like, he doesn't think he's doing a bad thing.
It's very...
It's really, like, this whole book, there's a lot of adult themes.
It is... And it's kind of, like, makes me think, like, what's going on, Peter Watts? Like, what are you doing here?
A little bit, like, damn, this dude loves trauma.
Yeah. And I'm not really good at but, like, he does a lot of, like, psychoanalysis of characters with, like, these different doctor characters and, like, and people who are addicted to, I guess, trauma and, like, the emotions that trauma brings.
They're sort of, like, they call them, like, pre-adapted.
Yeah,
to stressful environments.
So that's why a lot of these people that sit down there are pre-adapted due to some sort of trauma in their lives, and they kind of use that trauma, and they kind of they're pre-adapted. But I'm not really good at, like, interpreting that and talking about it, so hopefully you can pick up the slack in that regard, and I can just remember what happens in the book.
Do my best. So I think you said this when I asked you how you liked it. You said it was just like, what'd you say, like Full House?
It's just like a sitcom, but like with pedophiles and people who've had bad things happen to them and people who've done bad things. But there's not a lot of plot. No. It's a lot of people talking about things and feeling emotions about things. And then, like, the last, like, 1/6 of the book, there's a plot that gets pushed. But yeah, I don't know if there's really anything big happens when a new crew shows up. It's just kind of, like, growing pains of them getting along together. Mm-hmm. Fisher gets hurt on the first mission, I believe, right? And... like, it doesn't take too long for Clark realizes that he's a weirdo. Yeah. But he talks about, like, how he finds Clark attractive, which is weird because he's only attracted to boys.
And she kind of looks like a kid.
He says that she looks
prepubescent.
Yeah, I can never say that word.
She's just, like, skinny.
Yeah, I think because she takes, like, her suit off in front of him because she doesn't really care. Yeah. And he's, like, they're in the medical bay because he gets bit by a fish, kind of the same what happens to, Ballard. I almost said Brander. But... Brant? With Fisher, it's known pretty quickly he's weird, and there's I don't know if I'm jumping anything, so correct me if I'm skipping over something, but the big thing in this part of the book is that Brander, Mike, who, like I said, everyone here is kind of an insane person, whether it's valid that they're insane or not. But he finds out, or he kind of, I don't know how you say it, like, he knows that Fisher is a pedo, and it's kind of hinted at that maybe something happened to Brander.
Like he was molested.
Molested by a person like Fisher.
Hates Fisher. Brander hates Fisher.
Like, it's like kill on sight type. Like, he comes inside and he just beats the shit out of Fisher. And it kind of leads to Fisher sleeping outside. So when we say outside, like on the ocean floor.
Yeah, like in the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, maybe not at this point, but there's eventually a point where everyone kind of like loves it down there. Like Fisher was sent down there as kind of his prison sentence for a year. And he even starts to enjoy it down there too. But he's prevented from going into the station by Brander and kind of ends up going feral out there.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's really just a lot of, like, relationships and stuff. But Fisher, at first, like, Brander beats the shit out of Fisher and everyone just kind of stands around and watch. But then Lenny Clark starts to stand up for him a little bit. She's like, hey, Brander, like, maybe, leave him alone a little bit. Like, he's really crazy.
Yeah, and it's weird because... yeah, and the whole time, like, Fisher is, like, talking with Shadow in his head, and it's kind of hinted that maybe Shadow... well, it's not even hinted, it's talked about pretty obviously that Shadow was a woman who molested him as a child.
It was a girl.
Or, I was...
like, when they were both kids.
Anyways, and that's, like, kind of the other personality that he made in his head, which is why I guess he's the way he is now, which... they try to make him a sympathetic character, but the whole time Brander's beating up Fisher, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I'm okay with this.
Yeah. Yeah, so Fisher starts, at one point he's hungry, so he eats some shrimp out, like he just outside catches shrimp. And eats shrimp outside, and then he throws up everywhere, and Clark's like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Because it's just, like, different...
yeah.
like, bacteria and stuff down there that you're not adapted to.
Just eating raw... ocean shrimp.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Mm-hmm.
But, so, some more stuff happens, and then...
Great description.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to remember.
It's just very hard, because a lot of the book, to, like, recall the book, because it's literally just internal monologues of people talking about how they feel about the situation, and, just short snippets of them actually interacting. Mm-hmm. Like, Lupin is pretty much just gone all the time. He shows up to work on time, but he's just kind of out on the own. Fisher, like, hardly ever shows up to work on time because he's kind of out doing stuff by himself, and he's starting to kind of lose it because of Shadow in his head. And then Kariko and
Nakata,
They're kind of coping with their own. I think it's Nakata has some sort of device that makes her like dream. What is it called? Where you can like
REM sleep. Like REM sleep?
Well, I think what's the type of dreaming where you can lucid
dreaming. Yeah.
And then her and Karako, however you want to say her name, they kind of form a relationship. But everyone's now starting to walk around with their eye caps in at all times. Like, they're really starting to enjoy their time down there. I mean, except for Fisher, who's he's pretty much at this point. I don't know if we can skip ahead to this, but he's gone feral. He's off the grid, and they more or less say that he's dead.
Yeah. So they say he's dead, and then after that, then Acton comes down.
Which, he's like the worst character, I feel like. I hated him so much. I don't know how you feel.
He's kind of annoying.
Yeah, so he's just like, he seems like high school jock who never amounted to anything. Yeah, it's just, I guess the one big thing, plot point he brings is that he brings some sort of attachment to their apparatus of enhancements that it's kind of like a, I don't know, you want to call it, I think of it like when you do, you have like tags, when you tag animals, and if it doesn't move for a long time, it like emits a ping that it's dead.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say? What's that word? What am I trying to say?
I don't, they call it like a dead man switch.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like if Fisher would have had it, it would never went off because he never actually died. But it's supposed to be like, when they die now, they can go pick up the bodies.
Like, they'll get an alarm that says, like, hey, they're dead.
They're dead.
Yeah.
You can go pick them up.
So, Acton and Lenny Clark, I keep calling her Lenny, Clark, kind of form a relationship. Even though, like, she's an abuse victim and she tags him as an abuser.
But she kind of, like, that's kind of her thing, it sounds like. Because, like, her whole thing is, like, don't touch me. She hates when people touch her. But she's like, hey, big boy, touch me.
Pretty much. So Acton comes down and he kind of disrupts their whole thing. Like, they've got a flow going. They've turned the lights down in the station, like, really dim. And they, like, talk in whispers because they're used to, like, seeing in really low light with their eye caps. Mm-hmm. And they have, like, a voice thing, so when they go outside, they can still talk.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a talking through, like, a radio or something.
Yeah, it's like,
at all times, but it's like mechanical.
Yeah, or like when people who smoke get those things.
I was literally about to say that. Like the talk box, or not like the talk box, the fucking.
Oh, that's where they like.
Yeah, put the tube in it, but I'm like, good evening.
Yeah, exactly.
That type of thing, where they have like a little thing to their voice.
Creeps me out. I hate that.
Yeah, where they smoke through their stoma instead.
Don't smoke. Smoking's bad for you.
Exactly.
Anyways, so Acton starts to kind of mess with his implants because their implants put out these like neuroinhibitors. If you like biology and deep sea stuff, this is the book for you.
Because he talks about a lot. He even has like an appendix in the back where he talks about his different like thoughts about, like, he has a whole thing about kudzu in the back and about other deep sea fish and worms and shrimp and things.
And I think he has like a works cited even.
Yeah.
Where he gets all of the but so anyways, like the deep sea, the pressure and the temperatures and stuff messes with you on like a cellular level and the chemicals in your brain and stuff. So they have these neuroinhibitors, so when they go outside, it kind of tampers down like their dopamine and oxytocin and all this stuff, so they don't pretty much go into seizures because of the atmosphere out there. So he kind of tweaks his implants so he gets a little bit more of the dopamine when he goes outside. And everyone else on the station is like, that's really dangerous. If you do it too much, you're gonna die. But he's like, I do it just enough, and so I get sort of like, he gets almost like extrasensory perception a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but there's a point where everyone does it.
Yeah. And
they're almost able to like sense, like, they have had situations where other countries will send like drones or stuff in, or manned like submarines into like their area, and they can like sense it before it gets there. It's like they almost kind of get some superpowers off of like increasing their inhibitors and stuff.
So like an example, there's like a big, I think they call it like a muckraker, drives into their area, and it's just like a giant machine that's like churning up the muck to like get metal ores or something. And they kind of they're swimming along and they can kind of sense that there's a presence in it, but not like emotions.
Yeah.
And they realize that it's being controlled by a smart gel, like this cultured brain cell. And that's sort of another subplot where like we find out that these smart gels are sort of taking more and more like jobs from people and are doing more and more things.
Yeah, like on Joel's ship when he brings down some of the other crew members, like his right-hand man, I think his name's like Rick or something, he gets replaced by a gel. Gel. You know, he helps him, the gel helps Joel pilot the ship and stuff. So it's kind of, seems like they're kind of taking over a lot of these other positions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So Acton eventually tweaks it a little too much, and he doesn't want to go back inside the station because he says it's sort of he like becomes a different person when he goes inside and he doesn't like it. So kind of like Fisher, he starts to sort of stay more and more outside, and it really upsets Clark. But eventually Acton dies. He goes off. He's like, Clark, go. He tells her to like, you know, keep going with the others. And then he, like, drifts off, and then his alarm presumably sounds.
Yeah.
Like he's dead.
And, yeah, and also, actually, like, he gets, like, into fist fights with I almost call him Brandon. Or Brander. And then, like, there's a part where, like Clark kind of mentions that he hits her and stuff. Like, when he's outside, he's a nice, normalish person. But when he comes inside, he, like, starts fights. He, hits Clark. And then, like, kind of rough situations sexually with Clark. And it's just, yeah, and his whole idea is that he hates being the guy he is inside. So he needs to go outside into the ocean. And he kind of more or less kills himself.
Yeah. Supposedly. So, after Acton dies, then we get Scallion, as you call him, Scanlon. So he was this psychologist
who trained Jerry Fisher and kind of told him he was special and kind of part of, I can't remember what the acronym for the organization that sends them down there is, but he's a scientist and part of that.
Mm-hmm. So they send him down to kind of see what everyone's up to, since they're not like, they've stopped sort of keeping the schedule and they don't really communicate with dry land much anymore.
Yeah, and supposedly 2 people have died. We don't really know the timeline. I would probably say 6 to 8 months total that Clark's been down there. Mm-hmm. So 2 people dead in 8 months, not a great track record. Great. But yeah, he kind of finds that like they're kind of feral.
Yeah.
You know, they're walking around in their skin, their dive suits. They have the eye caps in. They're not keeping the lights on, so their circadian rhythm is like way longer. Like they're some of them are sleeping outside. Some of them he doesn't even see Lubin until he goes to leave, and they all kind of just treat him poorly. I mean, they even call like kind of a slur. They call them drybacks. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's like on the surface, because they've almost, at this point, they've all cranked their inhibitors up. So they're all kind of feeling this like superpower. So, you know, they're all sleeping outside. They're spending as much time as they can outside. But they've also like have some sort of kinship now. Like before, like Clark wouldn't talk to any people, wouldn't let them touch them. But now there's kind of like, they're almost friends. Like Clark goes into each, like, I think it was, I can't think of her name. Alice. Nakata's room, and like talks to her about some stuff, and like she's more emotionally available now that her like inhibitors up.
Yeah, or inhibitors down.
Yeah. Took down the inhibitors. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, they call Scanlon dryback, and in his like notes that he's sending up, he calls them vampires.
Oh yes.
So yeah. And he starts to lose it a little bit, like he goes out in, like, this clunky dive suit to kind of watch them work, and they, like, just leave him there in, like, the dark.
Yeah, and, like, he's like, I could have died, and, like, you made it back fine.
Yeah, I think it was funny, one of them, was it Kariko or whatever? She's like, you're a big, strong man, or at least you're a man.
Yeah, and it's like, Jesus.
Yeah, I know, so they really hate him.
Yeah.
And he gets more and more convinced, like, he's completely bamboozled. He doesn't know.
Yeah, and there's a couple situations where they find I guess, Acton's body, and I'm not really sure. It's like a vent, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a...
I thought of it as like a volcano underwater, where it's like a vent with a lot of hot air and pressure coming up, and like his body's down there, but Lubin made like a wind chime out of it as like a memorial. So he says. So I almost call him Scallion. Scanlan hears it a lot of times. It kind of freaks him out. And then there's a situation where he runs into Fisher. Yeah,
and Fisher sort of like... Well, he grabs Fisher, doesn't he?
Yeah, he tries to fight Fisher. And Fisher, we don't really know why. But Fisher is, like, very weak. Like,
probably because he's been eating nothing but raw fish.
Yeah, I assume he went the same way as, like, the fish down there that are super weak, but they get big and stuff. But
so, like, his teeth are falling out, and he's all, like...
Yeah, and he's kind of totally went to, like... Shadow is kind of controlling him in some parts, and like it's very not great, very not bueno for Fisher.
But Scanlan at one point has him, and then all the other Rifters come around and are like, let him go, or we're gonna just like leave you out here by yourself and you're gonna die. Yeah. And even Brander. Yeah. Fisher's kind of like become sort of their pet, I guess.
It's so weird because Brander is the only reason Fisher's out there, and Brander even defends him.
Yeah. And it's almost like Brander kind of is trying to be like the hero.
Yeah, that's all he wants to be, is the hero, and he's not the hero.
No, but it's funny, like you actually feel bad for... At least I felt bad for Fisher, even though
I don't care.
I know you don't care.
But yeah, I mean, Brander like fights with everybody because he wants to be like the cool guy, but he's just never is.
He never is. But I don't know, like Fisher, like he actually thought that he was being nice, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, even if
Yeah,
he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
He's out of all the bad people.
He's the worst.
He's the worst.
Yeah, so he kind of gets what's coming to him. But eventually, Scallion goes back up,
and then the plot finally starts to happen.
It finally starts to happen. They won't meaning the people he works for, the
organization that controls the energy or whatever.
They won't let him go. And they just hold on to him, and they're like, okay, well, it's just like a routine, quarantine. We're just going to take a few samples and stuff. And then time starts to go on, and he's being held in this quarantine room for like weeks. And he starts to
lose it.
He starts to lose it, and he starts to be like, wait, this is not normal. Like, there's something up why they're keeping me this long.
Yeah, because he went from like an underwater prison to a prison where he gets stuff shoved up his butt.
Well, you gotta explain.
It's like a medical bot that just likes to shove stuff up his butt.
Well, it's like taking samples, I guess.
Yeah, but the whole time he's like, he wants his boss,
Patricia Rowan,
to come in and like he wants to explain himself and kind of talk about his like whole idea. Where I can't remember what the term is, but he is the one that kind of coins the fact that they get addicted to like this trauma. Or this like emotional feeling when they're involved in trauma, these rifters, and that's why they enjoy it so much down there.
Yeah, because none of the drybacks could ever imagine that people would want to stay down there, that they would like it.
Yeah,
but he's like, no, they actually like it.
Yeah,
down
and they
there.
all sleep outside.
They all sleep outside, and
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so Patricia Rowan, they call her and like. They call them corpses, just like corporate executives or something like that. Mm-hmm. So she's like a big corpo person. Mm-hmm. And she visits Scanlan, but not her. It's like digital versions of her, like an assistant AI bot. And so he starts to mess with it a little bit to kind of try and figure out what's going on. Like he keeps asking it like leading questions and stuff.
I'm pretty sure that's just he goes to visit it. I don't think it's a bot that comes and visit him.
Well, because he's just in his like quarantine room, and she shows up.
Yeah, she shows up and talks to him and says like, "You're in quarantine. It's like a disease or something we haven't figured out." But then eventually it comes out. She tells him what's going on, and then he's able to talk to what they're talking about. So it's not an AI version of her.
Well, it is for a bit.
Is it?
Yeah, like not the actual gel. Like we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
I know, that's why.
But like at first, it's just like it's like a fake version of her because she won't come visit him like in person.
Gotcha.
So while Scanlan's being held in quarantine for unknown reasons, the gang in the ocean comes across this big laser grid in the bottom of the ocean, and nobody really knows what it is. It's just like a big grid of lasers, and then this like AI presence that they can sense.
Yeah, it's like they don't know it's a AI or brain shell. They just know it's like it's not human, but it's like alive.
Yeah. So when I first read this, my first thought was like, oh, it's aliens.
Yeah, I thought they were sensing Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but apparently it's not.
Yeah. So they are all trying to figure out what this is, and apparently it's radioactive. So they come to the conclusion that it's a bomb. So there's like a big nuke down there with this grid pattern and some sort of smart gel that is doing some sort of calculations.
Yeah. And meanwhile, while this is kind of situations happen, Kariko gets kidnapped.
Yep.
Or disappears. So
disappears.
She makes laps to like the surface and swims up and swims down, and it seems like the GA, I think is the organization.
Yeah, the Grid Authority.
It's like kind of monitoring that and making sure they don't leave, and they pick her up.
Mm-hmm. And then she gets kind of in the same situation where she's sort of held in indeterminable amount of time quarantine. But the people like Clark and them don't know what happened to her. They think maybe like a giant squid caught her or something happened. And
so, Nakata's really upset.
Yeah, because she kind of was...
They kind of had a relationship.
Yeah. So they're getting more and more kind of rebellious, I guess.
Yeah, they don't like the GA anyways. Like, they call them drybacks and everything. But, like, their trust is completely broken. And now they're kind of thinking, like, that maybe the GA is doing this and not telling them. And they're trying to devise a plan of, like, all right, do we try to defuse this bomb? Do we just start swimming and we just leave? Like, what should we do?
Mm-hmm. So they eventually figure out by looking at, like, patterns of the smart gel's, like, thoughts, I guess, or simulations, that it's running simulations about an earthquake, because the bomb is on this Channer vent, like, fault line, and if it goes off, it's going to channel, or it's going to, channel further quakes down other fault lines that would eventually cause a big earthquake and, like, tsunami to hit the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's running simulations on, like, something about just the right time to trigger this bomb in order to minimize casualties, so they think.
Mm-hmm.
In, like, the people that the tsunami would hit. And so that sort of... This whole part, I really like this whole part in the book, because it's like, you don't know why.
Yeah, and this is when the plot happens.
Yeah.
And eventually, I can never say his name right. Scallion. He finds out what's going on. This is kind of concurrent with what's happening with the Rifters. But Patricia kind of tells him that, I can't remember the context, but pretty much things are not going great on Earth.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, food shortages and stuff like this, and no country or organization can agree for, like, one person to make a decision. So what they decide to do is have a brain gel, or this, what do we call them? Smart gel, make a decision on how to kind of solve some of the problems that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
Scallion ends up questioning it, and kind of, this is kind of what we're talking about, like, where it's kind of giving AI responses. And he is able to question it in a way that he understands what's going to happen.
Yeah. So he asks it a question. Well, I guess first we need to explain why they've got this whole thing set up. Mm-hmm. So Scanlan finds out that there's basically a new life form. That's what
the bad thing is happening.
Yeah, that's the bad thing that's happening.
I forgot what was happening.
It's like the
that's
whole
a
thing.
Big plot. That's the whole plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why they're making decisions.
Yeah. So they found that in Channer Vent specifically, there's a new, it's It's a microbe, but it's like not. It's like a whole new, like evolved separately than like any life on Earth.
It's like a new life.
Yeah.
Like where we have like prokaryotes and eukaryotes. It's a different thing completely. And
which is kind of cool because there's a theory that like our life first evolved in deep sea vents.
Yeah.
Because they've got all the, like, the hydrocarbons.
And like the heat and...
Yeah. But this thing, they call it behemoth. And it is real because it's in the deep sea. It's really good at like metabolizing sulfur, and so there's like all the science stuff about it. I don't remember, but if it gets out from where it is now, and it can only survive like in like warm bodies and stuff, it would basically wipe out like every life form on Earth just by outcompeting them.
Right, and that's why Scallion was in quarantine. That's why they captured Caraco, because they didn't want this to get out.
Yeah.
And that is why they used the brain gel, or the
Yes.
smart gel, to kind of answer this question of how we defeat Behemoth, or if you're British, Behemoth.
Oh, is that what they say?
I hate it. Yes, it is.
It's like a Behemoth.
Yeah, Beelzebub.
Lucifer.
But
so
now this is where
Scallion
is questioning this AI brain thing.
So they've got the smart gel on this bomb, and they've got it on the task, they think, to trigger an earthquake to wipe out the vent and Behemoth at the time when it would cause the fewest number of casualties on land from the tsunami, because it will cause a tsunami. And Scanlan is like, and he asked it a question, the brain gel. Would you prefer to... Well, he asked it all this leading up stuff about, like, what preference means to it, because it doesn't, like, have an actual preference. But he's like, would you prefer to play checkers or chess? And the thing's like, oh, checkers. And he's like, oh, we're all screwed.
Yeah, because he kind of deduces that it's going to take the most simplest way out.
Yeah.
It's not going to play chess. It's not going to try to figure out this very complicated thing. It's going to find the easiest route to get rid of Behemoth, and that might be to kill a lot of people.
Yeah. So he finds out that the people who set up this smart gel were like, okay, simulations, Behemoth versus biosphere, which is like everything on Earth. And the smart gel, through this like checkers or chess thing, was like, oh, well, it's like the biosphere is like super complicated and it could like topple at any moment. So I'm just going to make sure that Behemoth wins because it's simple, like, it's a simple option. So basically, it's going to trigger the bomb at the moment that would allow Behemoth to get out.
Yeah, and cause the most damage.
And
Scanion knows that when he leaves, and he just is like, haha, bye. And he's just like, just laughing, because I can't say her name.
Patricia?
Yeah. Doesn't know what is happening.
Yeah.
But it turns out later she figures out what's happening.
She does. And so, yeah, Scanlan's like, yeah, they're never going to let me out of quarantine. They're probably going to kill me.
Yeah.
So, whatever. And back at the bottom of the ocean, the others still don't know about this bug, but they have decided, because the bomb could go off at any minute, they're just going to leave.
Yeah.
So, the GA says they're going to send a sub to come pick them up.
Yeah, and Joel ends up coming down to grab them, but Brander and
Judy
and
Lubin.
Brander and Nagata. Well, I forgot her name.
Oh,
I'm always bad at their name.
Nakata
leave because there's an interaction between Clark and Lubin, who sticks her behind.
Oh yeah.
And Lubin confesses that he killed Acton.
Yeah, because. Do we figure out why?
Lubin didn't want to do... He lowered the inhibitions way later. He did not like Acton doing that, and I believe that's why he did it. But he was also just a crazy person.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we find out in the sequel, I don't remember if they say it in this book or not, that Lubin is basically, like, there to make sure there's no security breaches. So he's basically, like, an assassin for the GA. And that's why he killed his other partner, presumably because she found out something.
Gotcha. So maybe that's why he killed Acton, because he was a security breach.
Because Acton was getting a little too interested.
And Clark kind of knew this before Lupin told him. She went down into the vent where his body was and saw that his neck was broken.
Yeah. So, yeah, Nakata and Brander strike out swimming for presumably the coast.
And then I think Lubin leaves too, I believe.
Yeah, Lubin leaves too.
But Clark waits around for the boat.
Yep. So there's like a big argument where they don't want her to stick around because they're like, well, this bomb's going to go off. Why are they picking us up? That's kind of suspicious.
Yeah. And it's weird because, like, I think it's Scallion or Rowan says something about, like, oh yeah, Clark will stay.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like they know her so well. So weird.
It is weird because they're all like keeping tabs on them and stuff.
Yeah.
But
our boy Joel, that's like the most heartbreaking moment. So the bomb goes off.
Well, Joel picks her up.
Right.
They start to fly away.
And the underwater. Swim away.
Well, they get up. They get out of the...
Do they?
Yeah, they get out of the water.
Oh.
And they start to fly. And she sees the bomb go off below them.
Yep. They crash.
Well, no. Wait.
What?
Sorry.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So they get away from the blast of the bomb. And then a missile shoots them down.
Oh, I missed that completely.
Yeah.
I just started to skim through the end because I needed to get done.
Yeah. You're But yeah, so they escape the shockwave of the blast, and Joel's like, wow, we escaped. And then Clark's like, wait, what's that? And he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And they get shot down by a missile. And they start to sink.
Yeah, but Clark is fine because she can breathe underwater.
Yeah.
Joel breaks both his legs.
Oof.
And he just kind of he's just kind of floating. And he's just like, I don't want to die alone. And she just kind of sits there with him.
Yeah, it's
and
really sad.
He dies. And it's like all sad too because he's like, the only reason he came down there is because they're going to play him 8 times overtime, and he calls his friend. He's like, "Dude, this is weird, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but dude, it's 8 times overtime, dude."
Because wasn't he? It was like in the middle of the night, and I think he was in the middle of like banging
he had a VR
chick.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, come get these people." So yeah, so Joel eventually he opens the hatch of the sub and kills himself because he's like he's gonna die. They're sinking.
Yeah, to kind of release Clark, and then Clark's like, fuck these people, I'm gonna go fuck shit up.
Yeah.
And then
so
that's kind of where the book ends for her.
Yeah. So it ends when Clark is like swimming towards the mainland and she doesn't know why they tried to blow this up. They just know they really want her dead.
They really want the Rifters dead because they don't want Behemoth to spread.
Yeah. And so that's the end, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a scene where Rowan's in like her tower.
Oh yeah.
And she has this whole scene where they talk about I don't remember what the incident is, but something happened and it blew out all the windows of a tower and all the glass falls down and killed like way more people than this blast happens. And she's like, well, at least now they installed all the windows to break inward so it doesn't happen. And then the bomb explodes, shockwaves happen, and she's like, they installed the windows backwards and all the glass flies out.
Goes out.
And it's just like a metaphor how like bad things have gotten.
Yeah.
And how stupid the biosphere is and how alpha sigma male the behemoth is.
Behemoth supremacy, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Behemoth stands for alpha.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they spell behemoth with like the beta
symbol. With the sign, yeah, they do.
So in my head I like couldn't figure out how to. I was like beta behemoth. I don't know, but I really really love this book.
Yeah, what did we talked about it the other day, and I said I gave it a rating, and I think I just gave it like it was either 5 or 6.
So it was like average.
I like stories that are mostly like conversations. Like I listen to like Warhammer books. And I just black out during the fight scenes because, like, he parried his blow over overhand swept. I'm like, I can't picture people having a sword fight. It doesn't make sense for me. I don't know what a parry means. And he rotated half turn. And I'm like, that means nothing to me. But if 2 people are having a conversation, I can follow that all day. So I like that. It was, like, mostly like that. But what we talked about with the Behemoth, that happens... And like it's like 370 page book, and that probably picks up on like page 270.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just literally the conversations between the Rifters and like some psychoanalysis of why the Rifters are predisposed to be doing well down there. And then it's like, oh fuck! It's like he got 3/4 way through the book, and it's like, oh, there has to be a plot.
Okay, well, you say like the stuff does happen. Like there's some cool fish, and there's like a dead whale that they
That's
find.
true.
And Clark makes this like abomination of a starfish.
Which I think we should have probably mentioned, because I'm pretty
Probably.
sure that's why it's called this. Is because, like, I think it's supposed to be a metaphor for, like, the Rifters, but also Behemoth, where no matter, like, how you tear them apart, they grow back.
In, like, weird
And it's, like,
ways.
they grow back, but they're not the same.
Yeah. So
and that's
Clark,
kinda,
like, she takes Scanlan to see this, because, you know, if you, like, rip their legs off, it'll grow a new starfish from the legs.
Yeah.
And so she's, like, taken all these starfish and, like, ripped them apart and, like, stitched them into one giant starfish.
Like, amalgamation.
Because,
really
like,
Acton shows her how to do this.
Yeah.
And at first, she's, like, really mad at him. But he's like, no, and, like, it goes... I think it's supposed to be, like, a metaphor. It's like, the starfish goes through the trauma, it grows back, but it's never the same as what it was before.
Yeah.
And I think that's supposed to be, like, a metaphor for the Rifters.
Yeah.
They're starfish.
So...
I don't know that, though. I made that up.
It sounded
very good.
It sounded really good. You
Yeah.
see, that's like you just did psychology.
I did. Whoa, dude, crazy.
That's all they do in psychology.
Just make shit up.
Yeah, bro. You see, they psychoanalyze them so hard.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about the sequel just for a minute or so. So
Yeah.
The sequel is called Maelstrom, and it's not in the ocean, really, which is a little bit of a bummer because the ocean part is really cool.
Wait, and it's the majority of this book.
Yeah.
It's just
like
their interactions with the deep sea.
in the ocean, which is cool.
Yeah.
But basically, Maelstrom is... You should go read it. It's really good. The third book is...
Less good?
It's not great.
Even Peter Watts says that.
Yeah. It's not good. But it ties stuff up, but I don't think it's worth it. But Maelstrom's really good. Basically, Clark is, like, going on a trail of destruction, and she's carrying Behemoth. And so, wherever she goes, it's, like, spreading like crazy.
Does she know?
She kind of figures it out.
Gotcha.
And then there's, like, another guy whose name is Achilles, who, like, he's one of these people whose job is to, like, protect the many by sacrificing the few. So he, like, is in charge of, like, firebombing certain areas.
He is the trolley problem man.
Yeah, he is. But he has this, like... there's a lot of cool, like, computer stuff, because there's, like, computer viruses that sort of spread this Lenny Clark thing and, like, help her.
Yeah, it's kind of talks about, like, the viruses almost seem like... The computer viruses seem like actual viruses, because they're like, oh, you gotta watch out for the viruses, because Brander even talks about it. Because he's, like, he does a lot of... Him and Acton do a lot of, like, stuff on their computer and, like, research and stuff, so...
Yeah, and Lubin survives, spoiler alert, and he's a big part of the second book as well.
Yeah, he's just very weird.
He's
And it's weird that Scallion didn't know that Lubin is a GA representative, I guess, because Scallion isn't that big of a guy, which is really weird, because when we get introduced to him, where he's, kind of grooming Fisher, which I use that word on purpose.
nice.
Like, he seems like a top guy in the organization, and the next time we hear him, he's kind of like... He I don't know why, when I pictured Scallion in the book, I pictured the, like, the little tiny chef guy from Ratatouille.
Dude, yes!
That's what I envisioned him looking like the whole time.
Oh my god, that's perfect. I think he thinks he's a bigger deal than he is.
Exactly, and, like, because we see that when he's, like, telling Fisher he's special, and then it turns out, like, the guy who trained Fisher is not even, like, no one even gives a shit about him. Because it's Scallion both times, right? That didn't make that up, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, but R.I.P. to everyone but Clark and Lubin.
Wait, does it pop up Brander's dead and all of them are dead? Or does someone find them out?
Well, they die.
They die in the book, or they die off screen?
Well, they die off screen, because she sees the blast, and she's like, they couldn't have flown far enough away.
Oh, I guess it was already interpreted from this book that they're dead.
Yeah, and they don't come up in the... Well, they do come up in the second book, but not alive.
Rip.
Yeah.
And I guess does Kariko die?
Yeah. Well...
She got taken away.
I think she's presumed dead. I don't think they really bring her up again.
Fair. They were there for, like, half the book, and, like, they were...
Yeah.
No, I did not care.
It was like a fucked up little family. It was so nice.
Yeah, they kind of talk about it like that.
Yeah, but then... Yeah, the shit gets bad in
it
the
gets
second
real
book.
weird in the first book, too, though.
It does. But just, like... Yeah, but I really like it. The science stuff is really cool. If you're into deep-sea fish and animals and giant tube worms, it's also really good. If you're into psychoanalysis, it's good.
It's definitely a 5 or 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Where would you rank it?
I honestly
10 out of 10. It's your favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
Fair, there you go. Probably. 10 out of 10. First 10 out of 10.
Well, we've only done 3 of these.
The first 10 out of 10.
That's true.
I'm still not incorrect.
That is true. Yeah. So, what are we going to cover next time?
So, I don't know if we want to do this book, but we started an audiobook. So, maybe we can do that one. It's Ruins... Oh, God. Children of Time. By Andre... Oh, I messed it up already. By Adrian Trikowski? I realize that's not even how you spell his name. Like, that's like his, like, pen name. Adrian, it's like T-C-H-Owski.
Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Tchaikovsky. So, yeah, it's kind of definitely a sci-fi, futuristic. We're very limited into it right now, but it seems pretty good. It's got a lot of reviews. It's relatively recent, 2015. That was 10 years ago.
Oof. You're 30.
But yeah, I kept getting it confused. The sequel is Children of Ruin, and I thought that was the first book. But it's actually Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So that's going to be the book next month.
Yep.
Or whenever we get to it.
Whenever we get to it, yeah. Do you want to do like an in-between thing? We'll do TBD, and it'll be a surprise. Well, this has been the SciClones podcast with Annika and Dalton. This week or month, we covered the book Starfish by Peter Watts, and our next big novel is going to be Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So thank you all very much for tuning in.